Exalted is a game made by White Wolf, and it's a game about high fantasy demigods. Anybody familiar with their modus operandi knows. Their shtick is all about taking one system and tweaking it in a lot of different ways, some of which may or may not be compatible with one another. Balance issues ensue, but nobody ever praised White Wolf for their mechanical or layout design prowess. Thematics are what they do best, and Exalted is no exception to these rules. The Solars are god kings who've come back to reclaim what they believe is their divine right. Mechanically, they've got the greatest potential, though they're a little singular in their focus. Lunars are the primal wizards and witches that live on the fringes of civilization. Mechanically, they get a lot of second chances and alternate ways to accomplish things. The Dragon-Blooded are the children of the elements that make up the world. They're not as mighty as the sun, moon, and stars in the sky, but they're numerous. Since they happen to be the most numerous of all the Exalted, they thus control most of creation. Not that that means much, since creation is a very dangerous place filled with terrifying monsters, both mundane and supernatural. Somebody's got to deal with them, and if you're a Dragon-Blooded, it'll most likely be you. So, if Exalted sounds cool and you're one of those rare types that aren't interested in a complete and utter power fantasy of a game, stick around. Today, we're going to be talking about the Dragon-Blooded from Exalted. Dragon-Blooded are the eternal butt monkey of the Exalted. Mano a mano, there's no way they can ever hope to stand up to any of the other Exalted. And they even have to pay experience points just to learn their excellencies. There's still benefits to playing a Dragon-Blooded though. For one, they're the most numerous, so you'll have no shortage of similarly powered allies. Additionally, they don't suffer from the Great Curse as severely as the other Exalted. Mechanically, a lot of their abilities are kinda weak, but they make up for it by being very efficient. And furthermore, they have a lot of abilities with a lot of minutia. We'll cover some of these abilities later, but for now, let's review character creation for the Dragon-Blooded. Character creation for all Exalted typically follows the same steps no matter what your type is. For the sake of brevity, I'll be highlighting the key differences that the Dragon-Blooded have to their process. The Dragon-Blooded have one of my biggest pet peeves in any RPG. You need to be familiar with the lore of Exalted in order to make a character by rules as written. The Dragon-Blooded are servants of the Scarlet Empress, whose empire controls most of creation in the world of Exalted. So if you want to take a shortcut in running a Dragon-Blooded game, think of it like this. The Dragon-Blooded are the Empress's elite soldiers. The great warriors, wizards, and everything else keeping the world safe from the monsters and barbarians that lurk around creation. You could also be forgiven for treating this particular line of Exalted almost like D&D, since the Dragon-Blooded are also typically those that operate in 5-person squads, with each member representing a particular element. The 5 elements to the Dragon-Blooded being air, which represents potential in seeing things as they could be, earth, which is enduring trouble and stoicism, fire, which is passion in taking action, water, which is adaptivity and coping, and wood, which is living and experiencing the world. Your element as a Dragon-Blooded is your aspect, and it also determines your aspect abilities and gives you a few unique abilities, usually linked to your element in some way. Fire aspects can create fire on a whim, while water aspects can move through water unimpeded. Aspects aren't just a cheesy personality quiz like what element is your soul that vaguely describes human behavior broadly enough to match anybody. You're literally an embodiment and physical manifestation of that element. Dragon-Blooded are also trained from a young age to be heroes of the realm, which brings me to the game lore part that I don't like. Part of character creation requires picking a secondary school that they were a part of, which gives them access to a few extra specialties. Though, more GM shortcuts, the Dragon-Blooded typically end up with 5 specialties, a little bit more than all the other Exalts. Additionally, Dragon-Blooded also have more merits than the other Exalts. They start with 13 plus an additional 5 that can be used for things like status, wealth, followers, and anything that just represents having a high position in society. They are, after all, spectacular heroes celebrated throughout the realm, It makes sense that they'd have magical artifacts, fantastic treasures, and ordinary people willing to risk life and limb just to have a piece of that. The longest part of creating a character in Exalted, without exception, is picking charms. Charms are the meat of Exalted, so get comfortable in dealing with them. This part of character creation can take up to a day if you aren't sure what you're doing. One thing that'll really help you out though is a set of flowcharts of the charm cascades by Mad Letter. I'll include a link to those in the description. Dragon-blooded charms have a few unique keywords. Among them are aura, balanced, and some keywords pertaining to the 5 elements. These keywords pertain to the elemental auras that the dragon-blooded can use with their charms. Essentially, whenever you use a charm that has an elemental tag, you gain that elemental aura. Anytime you use a charm that has a different elemental tag, you move into that aura. Charms with the aura tag are either empowered when you're in a certain aura, or can only be used when in the correct elemental aura. The change in aura always happens, unless of course the charm you're using has the balanced keyword. At that point, you can either change into your new aura, or you can keep your current one. 2 other important keywords are excellency, which denotes that the charm is an excellency, and signature, which denote that it's one of the ability's most powerful charms. You can normally only have one signature charm for each ability, unless it's one of your aspect or favorite abilities, in which case, when you reach Essence 5, you're allowed to gain a second signature charm. When gaining a second signature charm for an ability, if you haven't already taken the one for your element's aspect, your second one must match your element. In other words, if you're going to take 2 signature charms, you have to be Essence 5, and it has to be an aspect or favorite ability, and one of them will inevitably be your aspect's element. Excellencies are somewhat different for the Dragon-blooded though. You only gain 5 of them for free at the start, and they have to come from either your aspect or favorite abilities. And if you want more, you have to either pay experience points to get them, or use your free starting charms to do so. This contrasts with the Solars and Lunars, who have methods for unlocking their excellencies by meeting certain conditions. No experience is required for Solars and Lunars. The Dragon-blooded are ideal if you like the idea of playing a game about demigods, but don't want to turn it into a complete power fantasy. Plus, they're more broadly defined in their powers than the Solars, but they're not as shallow as the Lunars. Meaning just by picking different aspects, you can do the sort of party balancing that you might expect out of a game like Dungeons & Dragons. And this thematically makes sense. It's just what the Dragon-blooded do. But there's 2 drawbacks I'd be remiss not to reiterate. First, a Dragon-blooded will be easily overshadowed by any Celestial Exalt, such as the Solars or the Lunars. Second, the Dragon-blooded have a lot of intricate mechanics. They have elemental auras, they need to repeatedly use certain charms to maximize their effectiveness, and they also have to contend with the terrestrial keyword that changes the rules of how martial arts work for them. So keep in mind, Exalted is a White Wolf game. Every Exalt is good within their theme, and to that end, you'll probably have the best time if you don't try to mix and match different Exalts in a game. The Dragon-blooded aren't my personal favorite, but I could enjoy an all-Dragon-blooded game. Though, I'd still be cross if I was expected to read all of the setting information. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, give me a thumbs up like. And if you want to hear more about Exalted or any other wildly complex RPG, check out my other videos or hit the subscribe button. And while we're at it, if you're already familiar with the Dragon-blooded, tell us in the comments section about some of your favorite Dragon-blooded charms. With all that said, I am Eschew, and I'll see you all next time.